Episode 7 of The Amazing Digital Circus was released recently, and after that, out of left field twist at the end of the episode, with it being revealed that the entire episode was an adventure by Kane, it sparked a lot of discussion on what in the episode was actually genuine and real. I have surprisingly, however, not seen that many comment on Jax pressing the stay in the circus button as much as I thought I would, considering how much of a big deal it was made to be when it happened within the episode. Although this seems to be because people are of the conclusion that Kane made him press the button due to this line of admission by Kane himself.
Now, hold on, guys. Wait. I may have the ability to add temporary modifiers to make adventures more interesting, but that's it. If I did anything more, trust me, it would not end well.
However, I believe this line of reasoning to be flawed due to several reasons and takes away from the possibility of another, more sinister revelation than Kane admitting that he could alter the cast's minds all along. That being the possibility that Jax was never affected by Kane at all in this scene and actually pressed the button to stay in the digital circus on his own accord, with no outside interference from anyone. Ergo, the question I posed with the title of the video, is Jax evil now? I know, I'm aware this is a big accusation to make against the pink goober himself, but just hear me out, okay? And yes, I'm aware of how hypocritical this may seem on the surface. Now, two things to establish, however, is that while yes, Kane by his own admission can alter people's minds, evident by the stupid sauce and Jax becoming a vegan, that does not automatically mean he actually did alter Jax's mind in order to compel him to press the button for two main reasons. Reason one being that if he did compel Jax to press the button, it would go against his goal of having the cast genuinely like him and desire to stay in the circus, because having Jax press the button against his own free will is not a genuine action of wanting to stay in the circus. And two, while it is hinted that Kane can maybe abstract people on purpose when he shut down Kinga, remembering the first abstraction.
Scratch. The first abstraction.
Hey! I didn't say anything like that!
That does not confirm that he actually can, nor does it mean that he was intentionally doing it to Jax in his bedroom, which then caused him to panic in a similar way he did in the master control room. This line of reasoning also doesn't take into consideration the numerous reasons as to why Jax would have genuine reasons to abstract. The biggest one being his coping mechanism of being mean to others to hide his pain has started to lose its power, evident by how he became furious after embarrassingly being forced to wear a maid outfit, his crash out in episode 6 when Pomni refused to back off even after Jax did everything in his power to be as mean and verbally cruel to her as possible, and that he has started to really miss Ribbon and Kaufmo when he picked up his picture of themselves together. So it's unfair to say that Jax never had any proper justification to genuinely abstract in the first place based on what we know about abstraction. And taking this in mind, I do not think it's fair to say that the only possible route of explanation is that Kane mentally manipulated Jax into pressing the button. And two, Abel was ultimately an NPC due to this line that Abel tells Pomni when she says what she'll do when she gets out of the circus.
So, how are you getting up?
I'm not, but I trust all of you to make the right choice.
When we all get out, I'll buy you a beer.
Make the right choice.
Because it wouldn't make sense for him to say this instead of saying to Pomni to simply press the button to escape the digital circus, as it only serves to seed doubt into her mind, which also contradicts his eagerness to escape as well given his actions and especially this line of dialogue.
But I didn't want to potentially ruin our only chance at escape by telling you before I knew exactly how we were gonna do it. I'm not a creation of Kane. I've suffered just as much as the rest of you.
Which would only serve as further motivation for him to leave the circus if he actually did suffer so much within the circus. It's because in reality, it was solely Kane projecting his desire to Pomni through Abel to make the right choice of staying in the circus in order to set up a situation where at least one of them in the cast would hesitate and potentially pick the right choice and stay in the circus, which is exactly what happened.
Congratulations, my little cattywampus cucumbers! You picked the good ending, where you realize you'd rather stay with me than go back to that pesky old macroverse or whatever we decide to call it. I knew you'd make the right choice. Great job playing your part, Abel!
All in a good day's work.
There are also smaller details, like Abel's flashbacks having subtle differences to what actually happened in the previous episodes, despite him presumably being there watching what actually happened, so he should have had an accurate retelling of what happened, as well as Kane stating that Abel is getting too smart after Abel requested a raise for his acting performance, indicating that his AI had gradually gotten smarter, which is an aspect of NPCs that was also indicated with the character Gummy Goo, who got smarter throughout the episode after learning he was an NPC, and by this line from Kane himself.
So wait! I'm testing out a new AI in this one! It should be 57 times more immersive!
which also would explain how Abel was able to convince everyone he was a real person, since his AI was indeed 57 times more immersive, even convincing Zubul, who normally hates Kane's adventures and was completely enthralled by Abel. However, despite the evidence I've presented that Abel was always an NPC and Jax's own skepticism of him, Jax still believed that he was telling the truth. Otherwise, why would he continue on with Abel and the rest if he truly believed that it was all a ruse? Why would he sound so surprised when Kane revealed the entire adventure was a ruse?
I was right?
I can't believe I was right!
This proves that whether or not the adventure, Abel, or even the buttons were real or not is irrelevant, as Jax was still fully under the assumption that they were 100% real when he pressed the button to stay in the circus. Which then begs the question, why did he press the button to stay in the first place? I mean, surely like the rest of the group, he too misses his home. He would also like to reunite with his family and friends. I mean, considering how fast he was to press the button to stay in the circus, you'd think he'd be doing the same to the button to escape.
What's the rush? You got someone waiting for you outside?
Don't you?
Yeah.
Unless he never actually wanted to leave in the first place, which I believe solely because of the images that were present in Jax's panic attack scene. Although another thing to establish beforehand is that these could not have been created by Kane to either manipulate Jax, because of what I stated before, and also because there is no way that Kane would have been able to create such completely different locations considering his own frame of reference to the real world, or the macroverse as he calls it, are pictures of inside an office building. So this means that these are indeed Jax's true memories. Now, although on the surface they may seem irrelevant as they simply show a house and a car driving on the road, considering that these images affect Jax with him jolting in fear while panicking as the moment to choose the button comes closer, therefore increasing his fear, we can safely assume that these are negative memories. As well as, since these negative memories come from the real world, we can also safely assume that something bad must have happened to make Jax so fearful of these images merely popping into his head. And since something bad must have happened, that would serve as justification for Jax to press the button to stay in the circus, unlike if the other button were to be pressed, where he would be forced back into the real world and therefore forced to confront whatever negative thing happened to him before he entered the circus. Now, yes, I'm aware that when Jax blames Kane for messing with his head, he then gets backed up by Pomni and Kinger, which subsequently gets Kane to admit that he can mess with their minds. I believe Jax was actually being deceptive, but not intentionally or consciously. What do I mean by this? Well, let's rewatch the scene right after when he presses the button.
What did you just do?
This scene happens just before it is revealed by Kane that the exit was a ruse the whole time. So in this scene, just before the reveal, Ragatha and Jax are still fully under the belief that the buttons were real, and in turn Ragatha's line was because of her disbelief that Jax pressed the button to stay in the circus, and Jax's line was under the belief that he just pressed the button to stay in the circus despite everyone else wanting to leave right in front of them. With that from Jax being him frozen on what to say to explain what he just did, which would have absolutely been considered a capital offense in the eyes of the rest of the group, until Kane shows up to provide him with a way to frame the situation in his favor. However, the twist being that what Jax is saying here is not actually him attempting to lie because he actually believes what he is saying. What I suggest is that whether or not the images that Jax saw were actually put in there by Kane or not is not actually relevant. It doesn't matter because they were still enough to make him fear the real world and therefore make him press the button to stay in the circus. Of course, what about what Kane said to Jax? Doesn't that confirm that Kane was actually messing with his head? Well, no, because let's hear what the full scene actually entailed.
You dirty liar! You scumbag! You made me... You got in my head! You just lie about everything, don't you?
Huh?
You can mess with our minds too, can't you? The stupid sauce, the vegan thing, God knows what else!
Our names?
No, hold on, guys. Wait. I may have the ability to add temporary modifiers to make adventures more interesting, but that's it. If I did anything more, trust me, it would not end well.
While Jax actually does believe Kane put the images in his mind, this scene only confirms Kane's ability to mess with their minds, not that he actually did mess with Jax's mind in this moment, which makes sense for Kane not to do. As I already stated in the beginning of the video, it would be counterintuitive to Kane's desire to have the cast, including Jax, want to stay in the circus genuinely. However, Jax still does believe Kane put those images in his mind, so he is also not consciously lying in this scene either. He's not intentionally being deceptive. He brought this up specifically as a point because he genuinely believed that Cain did have the ability to mess with their minds and has been lying about it the entire time, which was catalysed by the confirmation by Cain that Abel was an NPC the entire time. A lie.
One of the few things I don't have control over are your minds. Wait. I may have the ability to add temporary modifiers to make adventures more interesting, but that's it.
As well as because of the evidence that he listed before Cain's direct confirmation. Evidence which to him and even us the viewers makes sense. I mean, how else would Ragatha have become stupid or Jax be turned into a vegan if Cain couldn't mess with their minds? And since there is no other possible answer for Jax to explain those moments other than Cain messing with their heads, and to him there's no other reason why those images would pop up in his own head to him personally, then to Jax the only logical conclusion would be that those images in his head only showed up because of Cain's involvement. He was simply following the logic on what he personally believed was true and not what was objectively true, with the conclusion that Cain has the ability to mess with their minds being true in the end, which therefore then served as a clever but unintentional way to mask what Jax did. Now ultimately, to bring the topic of the video home, considering what I have just clarified and my point that whether or not Cain actually messed up Jax's mind being an irrelevant factor, this makes Jax's decision to press the button to stay in the circus a morally evil and reprehensible action. Because really, why else would he press the button? He still had full autonomy over himself and yet still chose to press the button to stay in the circus. It's because him believing the choice to either stay or leave was real caused him to selfishly rush over to the button in order to avoid whatever negative fate awaited for him in the real world, dooming the rest of the cast to stay in the circus forever also that he himself can avoid the consequences. In fact, the only reason that I even added that question mark at the end of the video's title was because I'll at least play devil's advocate and say that he wasn't thinking rationally on what to do about this situation, evident from how he was acting physically. However, considering he still ultimately decided to press the button to stay in the digital circus, knowing the grave consequences of that action, panic and fear alone does not excuse him dooming everyone else just to save his own skin. That action alone, at the very least, makes him a worthless coward, and either way you spin it, there is simply no way I can think of that you can spin this to make it to where Jax is a good or even a decent person after what he did, which is why I am confident in my conclusion that the label of villain might be the shoe that fits. But we shall simply have to wait for episode 8 to see what the rest of the cast thinks. May God have mercy on his maid dress and soul. Episode 7 challenged me. It really did. It made me think very critically about the information it presented to not only decipher what was always fake, but what was always real as well. So I can confidently say I am very much looking forward to episode 8 and the final 9th episode of the series. I'd like to thank my friend True Doom for helping me with this script. He was a really huge help in making me come to my final reasonings for this video and peer reviewing for any mistakes. Thank you so much for watching, and if you have any disagreements, be sure to leave them in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe as well, and I'll see you all in the next video.